Welcome back. So when I did the number 4 draft picks, I misread. I had Nino Niederreiter on that list. So I was like, all right, how do I do this? Do I take Ryan Johansson, who was the number 4 pick that year, and put him into the number 5 video? And I had the idea of, yeah, I could do that. And then I thought, well, no. A mistake in one video shouldn't lead to a mistake in 2 videos. So we're going to rank Nino Niederreiter again. And what's interesting is his standing in the number 5 picks is different than the number 4, in part because this goes all the way to 2020, and there are players who haven't really hit their stride. There's a couple who haven't debuted in the NHL yet. So once you get further down in the overall spots in your draft, I may combine draft picks, just as a, for instance, 6 and 7, 8 and 9, 10, and that kind of thing, so that we don't end up with a list where it's like 5 guys who made it and a bunch of others that kind of made it and then some that didn't, right? So Niederreiter's going to be in this countdown. For the record, I've gone through and looked at yesterday's video. Johansson, I would have had 6th, so I would have had him right ahead of Seth Jones, who he was traded for, and it would have bumped everybody else down. The top 5 would have stayed intact. So there you go. Hopefully that explanation, and for people who jump to the end, it's not going to matter, but people who jump to the end and say, oh, what about Niederreiter? He's on both. You can say, hey, you skipped the rest of the video. Just watch the start. Watch the first minute and a half. It's all explained. Now, ranking 1 through 16, as I said, there are a couple of players who haven't played in the National Hockey League yet. This really makes things difficult because I can't just put Jake Sanderson and Alex Turcotte at the bottom based on that, right? Or can I? So I'm going to do it this way, and you guys can let me know what you think for players who haven't debuted yet. In the case of Sanderson, everything says he should be a good NHL player. In the case of Turcotte, it's taking him a little bit longer, but he should be a player as well. So in 16th spot, I'm putting in here a player who has, well, been health issues with him staying in the lineup, and I'm going with, from Vancouver, Olli Juolevi from 2016. So even though Juolevi is still employed in that he has a contract for this coming season for a National Hockey League team, I'm putting him at 16th. That was a draft pick that at the time had a lot of people scratching their heads, and the Canucks saying, hey, we need a defenseman. And Tkachuk was the one that went after, so that really doesn't help. Number 15. And again, this is where it gets kind of murky. So in asking myself the question, so players who haven't played yet, Turcotte, can I have him higher than the guy who's 14th? And the answer to that, for me personally, was no. And yet the guy who's at 13 is a guy who hasn't played in the NHL yet. So again, I'm going to have to revisit this when we get to future picks. At number 14, from 2014, Michael Del Cole. So this is a draft where if you're looking for 2012, 2012 was actually good for the number 5 pick. Other draft picks, not so much. So yeah, Michael Del Cole, I don't know how much he plays. I think he played 1 game last year. It just hasn't worked at the NHL level. It doesn't look like it will. And so at 13, and finishing off this murky bottom 4, the 2020 draft pick, Jake Sanderson. So that's, again, that's one of the limitations when I'm doing this, is just kind of speculating and say, okay. The other players, regular NHL players, had decent careers. I can't have Sanderson ahead of them. Del Cole, who has been, if you want to use the term bust, okie dokie. Same with Juolevi. I think that you'd have the 2 players who haven't played yet, those 2 players as well at the bottom, Del Cole and Juolevi. And then we move on to number 12. And number 12 is where we get into players who are playing in the National Hockey League this season. We are sure about that. See, now I say that, and watch this player get cut in training camp. Does he need waivers? I don't know that he does. From 2018, it's Barrett Hayden. Hayden, one thing with him in Arizona, he may get top time. He may get top 6 time. And so we'll see what happens with Hayden with the Arizona Coyotes. Does he get that top time? Does he end up getting 45, 50 points? And for Hayden, they've been waiting on him for a bit. Again, 2018 pick. If he's going to make it, this should be the year. It's 4 years out since his draft year. So, yeah, this could be a big year for Hayden. And who knows, the next time I do this, maybe he moves up the list a lot. Now we get into a player whose career has already come to a halt. And again, this is the tricky part. 2007. Karl Alzner, who I repeatedly referred to as Kyle Alzner. If you're watching this, Karl, maybe make the change. Kyle Alzner just seems to sound better. But at any rate, Karl Alzner, for me, at 11, he did play in the NHL for quite some time. Ends up signing a contract that was a little bit high, and that, along with other factors, ends up shortening the end of his career a little bit, I think, off of where it would have been. I think that high contract just made it tough, right? So for Alzner, 2007 pick of the Washington Capitals, I don't see him as a bust. That's how he gets that big contract. He just didn't end up living up to that big contract. Number 10 from the Toronto Maple Leafs, Morgan Rielly. No, it's not. From the Toronto Maple Leafs, Luke Schenn. Schenn, honestly, Luke Schenn is, I think, a solid top 4 in Vancouver. But he was good in Vancouver before that, too. And, of course, then in between, he played in Tampa, got himself a couple of cup rings, and comes back to Vancouver. I hope Vancouver finds a way to hold on to him. I think he has natural chemistry with Quinn Hughes. I can't explain it, but before that, and during definitely long periods of time before that, there's been struggles for Luke Schenn at points. I think that being drafted so high by such a visible franchise, I don't think necessarily helped. I think if he had been drafted by, say, the Coyotes, I think that his career might have been a little smoother, maybe not so much of the criticism that I think has been thrown Schenn's way along the way. But he's a good veteran at this point, and we'll see how things go. At number 9, don't adjust your set. So there's Nino Niederreiter at number 9 from the 2010. Now, what you can do as well, you can load up yesterday's, or a couple days ago, the video on the number 4 picks. And when I get up to Nino, you can cross that off. Use a dry erase marker on your television or on your monitor. Dry erase means it'll come right off, and then you can put Johansson in as the number 6. I'm pretty sure it'll come right off. Other than that, I mean, you can get a new TV or a new monitor. So, yeah, Niederreiter, 2010, the number 9. The number 9 on this list pick of number 5 draft picks, 5th overall. Niederreiter, 20 goal scorer, good career. I put him ahead of Schenn, but he's still on this side of the board. So he's higher up than he was in the video I did yesterday, 2 days ago. It's like yesterday didn't exist. But, yeah, Niederreiter, for me, is still on that side of the board. Number 8. Man, a lot of Islanders on this board, isn't there? It's like the Islanders are always near the bottom or something, and they don't win draft lotteries. Ryan Strome from 2011, drafted by the New York Islanders. He has bounced around the league since then, absolutely. Mostly teams wearing blue, so he likes to be on teams that wear blue. Go ahead and check it out. But yeah, for Strome, number 8, bottom on this column here, good solid career. I thought he played well for the Rangers last year, but there are those who believe that the points he produced were more of a reflection of the quality of his line mates than necessarily the quality of his play. We'll find out this coming season how Strome does and how all that works out for him, but I like Strome. I'm okay with Strome. Why not? Number 7. And this one I kind of went back and forth on because... See, I'm trying not to say that today. I do, though. When you're doing a list like this, it's tough. And Noah Hanifin's a tough call. 2015 number 5 pick. I was surprised when he fell to number 5 because boy, some of the scouting reports on Hanifin were ridiculous. Like, he was going to be absolutely fantastic. He hasn't achieved the level of success as was expected, but he's still a really good defenseman for the Calgary Flames. I believe it was Hanifin and Tanev that just, you could not get past them for about the first month of this past season. No 5-on-5 goals scored against the Flames with those two on the ice for quite some time. So, Hanifin, I think, has become a very good two-way defenseman. Definitely not as flashy as was expected when he was drafted, but still, good, solid career. And yeah, it's worked out pretty well for the Flames, and that trade worked out okay for Carolina as well. So there you go. Number 6. This one's a tough one because it again is an example of, it's not just points. Brayden Schenn, drafted by the Kings 5th overall in 2009. Now a member, of course, of the Blues. Brayden Schenn is another one of those characters that it's not just the points. There's a lot of other things with his game. He can have a very good game and not get on the score sheet at all. And probably underrated a little bit. That being said, I could not justify putting him at 5th. I thought about whether or not to put him at 5th, and I thought, no, the player who's in 5th spot belongs there. Has earned that right to be there. And so, yeah, I had to do that. All right. I have to make sure I just make the single noise because my cats are trained to kill like that dog in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So if I make that noise a couple of times, wherever I'm looking, they just attack. Number 5. Wouldn't that be great if I could train cats to do that? They just kind of sit around. From 2006 to the Boston Bruins, Phil Kessel. Again, I can't justify having Schenn ahead of Kessel. And yet, you know, when I did the career video on Kessel today because he signs in Vegas. But yeah, Kessel's had a solid career. He really has. Despite all the negativity around anytime you say his name around a hockey, just walk into just some random hockey crowd and say, "So Phil the Thrill, huh?" And you're going to get varying opinions. People saying, you know what, I like a guy who can eat hot dogs and hamburgers, just go out on the ice and skate around and get a couple of goals. While his teammates are lifting all the weights and doing all the extra work. And yeah, whatever, I got a hat trick last night, I'm good. More donuts, please. But yeah, Phil Kessel has, and whether that's realistic or not, it's really kind of made him like, he's going to be one of these guys that we talk about 20 years from now as like a legend of the game because he's a holdover. He is a player that, yeah, he does his work and he goes home. And all that extra work that the other guys are doing, yeah, if Phil did it, sure, he'd have more points. But again, I can't justify having him below Schenn or Hanifin. He's played over 1,200 games. He's got almost 1,000 points. Excellent career. Now at 4, you know, I'm going to make this switch. I'm going to do it right during the video. I originally had Pettersson at 3rd. I'm going to put Pettersson at 4th. So with Pettersson, there's definitely a split opinion on Pettersson. Pettersson had a miserably bad first half of the season. If you did not watch the Canucks the second half of the season, he had a much better second half to the season. And I think he is going to bounce back and get back to, I would say, near point per game. Maybe he'll hit point per game or higher this year. But that projection's tough, and he is coming off of what was considered to be a disappointment of a season. Now, people will point out the wrist injury. That's fair. And I think that's probably part of why his scoring statistics were down. But I can't have him 3rd. I really can't have him 3rd on the board. Just going over it, and I've been going through it in my mind since I put this list together. So Pettersson to me is 4th. There will be people who say, how can you have him ahead of Kessel? My answer to that would be that I think Pettersson... And I'm wearing the Pettersson jersey just for full transparency here as a fan of the Canucks, but I think Pettersson's the real deal. And while everybody's talking about JT Miller, I don't think it's Miller that the season lives or dies by. I think it's Pettersson. If Pettersson doesn't have that bounce-back season, and if he doesn't play the whole season the way he played the second half of this past season, I don't think it's going to matter how many points JT Miller scores. They need Pettersson. They need 2 lines going, is my point here. And so they need Pettersson anchoring one, whether it's in the middle or on the wing, and JT Miller on the other, and you should be all set. Should be. Number 3. Hey, look at that, another Toronto Maple Leafs logo. So, yes. In the going back and forth portion of your program, I have Morgan Rielly at third. Because, yes, over the length of his career, and he was drafted in 2012, I will take Rielly ahead of Pettersson. Rielly is another example of players that get overly criticized by non-Toronto fans and probably overly praised by Toronto fans, and the reality is probably somewhere in the middle. And I say that not like all Toronto fans praise Rielly, because after a loss, there are times I see comments about Rielly, but not very often, really. He is a very good defenseman. I think that he's provided Toronto with really solid work since his first shift right up until now. And so, yeah, I'm glad they've got him locked down. That being said, I have him number 3 on the list, which means there's 2 guys ahead of him. And at number 2, this one might surprise some people too. That being said, I have been a fan of this player for a long time. So at the time that Elias Lindholm's traded to Calgary, I'd almost kind of given up. Like Lindholm, there were videos on this channel towards the start of it, so like 2016, I want to say, especially 2017. Lindholm, I thought this guy's got a lot of upside. He should have that big explosive breakthrough, and then he didn't. And I kind of gave up on it happening. In Calgary, it's happened. The problem is that when you are playing with a more prominent line mate like a Johnny Hockey, people are going to look at your points total and say, yeah, but you played with Johnny Hockey. And so there's some of that I've seen with Lindholm. But I honestly think Lindholm is an excellent high-quality center on his own. And I think every year he gets better. So he has finally hit that breakthrough that I had expected for him many years ago when he was still a Carolina Hurricane. Maybe he needed that trade out of Carolina to Calgary to get that. Sort of in a similar vein to how Sam Bennett leaves Calgary to go to Florida, and then he hits his prime as well, or at least hits the numbers that might have been expected of him. So I like Lindholm. I'm fine with him being where he is on the board, and I know there will be a lot of debate about whether or not Rielly belongs second, because number 1, and I know there may be some debate about this one, but for me there isn't. So when I saw this list of players, to me 2005's number 5 pick Carey Price is the undisputed number 1. And while Pierre Maguire may disagree, the reality is that Carey Price, excellent goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens for a very long time. Yes, the way that his career has been the last few years, the reality he may end up retiring is there. But honestly, Carey Price has been a fantastic flag bearer for the Montreal organization. And I really think that Carey Price, if this is the end of his career, it's too bad. But he would still be the number 1 player, I would say, out of this group of 16 players. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens this upcoming season when it comes to Jake Sanderson, Alex Turcotte, and how that might have affected their standings. My guess is Sanderson has an excellent rookie season, and if I was doing this next summer, he'd probably be ahead of both Alzner and maybe Hayden, although Hayden may have a really good season himself. Alzner maybe ends up 13th, but again, I couldn't justify having Sanderson ahead of Alzner as Sanderson hasn't played a game yet. So, understandable. You guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. And as I said, as we get further into the draft, you end up with players who are busts on the board. You also end up with players who don't play in the NHL yet, or in some cases never made it to the National Hockey League. So let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.